Here's Rineman in the Morning, on demand from 102.1 and 105.3, The Shark.
Some of my favorite memories as an adult are going to the TD Garden in Boston, but of course some of my favorite memories as a kid are going to the old Boston Garden. And one of the first things I saw there was wrestling. And I was really excited when the great Billy Gunn was coming through town in a new company and decided to come on Rineman in the Morning and tell us all about it. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Billy Gunn. I'll get things going. All right. My guest this morning is a WWE Hall of Famer, but he's riding a new wave of success in All Elite Wrestling, which you can see tonight right here in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to Rineman in the Morning, Billy Gunn. How is it going, Billy?
I am awesome, man. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
I'm excited about coming to Boston.
Well, let me ask you about that. Did you ever get to wrestle in the old Boston Garden back in the day before they?
Of course, I did.
Okay,
Do you realize how old I am? I think the Garden was new when I started wrestling there.
My goodness. Well, yeah, because I saw you there. I feel the same way. Well, what can you describe as a wrestler? Because we hear all these Boston Garden stories. What was it like wrestling in the Boston Garden?
I mean, it was, there's so much, when you wrestle in like places like that and MSG and stuff like that, it's just the nostalgia part of all the great people that have been in there and been able to do their thing, whatever, so it's always exciting. It's always fun. The crowds are always amazing. So that's a plus every time.
What's your favorite Boston memory as a wrestler over the years? Did any moment jump out to you where you said, well, that's Boston right there?
Yeah, how hard it was to get in that building in the back.
Oh, yeah.
We used to have to, as many times as I've been there, it is always, I can never find my way, because you have to go under and over and through and behind, because we always park up behind, where all the players parked, and it was... Sure. It was a nightmare every single time.
That's how we do things in Boston. Even our arenas are put together poorly. The roads don't make it. How do I get there? I'll see you next month. The next month's event. I'm just going to hang around for that one. So it's as a longtime fan, it's such an honor to speak with you. And of course, I watched you from the beginning, which we'll get to in a second. But during the Attitude Era and all that. And it's just, you've always been someone I've watched on TV, and you already had a Hall of Fame career with WWE, but you reinvented yourself, which I think a lot of people are doing now in life. What made you decide to take a chance and go over to AEW?
It was just different. I'd been with WWE for so long in so many different aspects, and it was just, I guess at the time it was just a change. Mm-hmm. It was a good change. It was something different. It was something new. So, it was an opportunity that came around, and I didn't want to pass it up, and it was luckily for me, and I love it now, and I'm having so much fun. So that's in this part of my career, me having fun is all I want to do.
That's awesome.
No more drama, no more hassle. It's
totally, yeah, absolutely. Easy. Well, tell us a little bit about, for some that are just catching on, because AEW is just making some amazing television and doing some amazing things with wrestling. Who are some of the players we might recognize in AEW tonight, and who are some folks we should be on the lookout for, the next stars of tomorrow?
So, of course, Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, yep. Daniel Bryan, Claudio. There's a handful of guys that you would know from somewhere else, and then like the MJFs, my boys, the Acclaim. There's a bunch of young. That's the cool thing about AEW is there's a bunch of young talent, and there's a bunch of talent that you most likely wouldn't get to see anywhere else. And now they're in AEW. They have a chance to go somewhere, and they have a chance to prove themselves. Usually, it's just somebody giving them a chance to prove themselves that they can do this, and they can make the people get into this. So we have the girl side is Britt Baker. We have Jade. There's a handful of people that are super exciting to see. It's a lot of fun. It's refreshing. It's something new. People ask me all the time, what is the difference, or do you like one of the? No, it's just as a fan, you get to choose what you like, and it's just something else for you to watch. It's another wrestling show that we have that is really good, and it's awesome. Yeah. And you pick what you want to see and have fun doing it.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think you brought up like just having fun and the relationship. But one of your best friends, I think, unless it's just kayfabe, as they'd say in the business, but New Hampshire's own Triple H. He's a New Hampshire native. He's one of our favorite sons here in New Hampshire. How do you think Triple H is doing since he's assumed the new role of head of creative at WWE?
To be honest, I hear that he's doing a good job. I don't really, being as that's not where my bread is buttered from. So
of course.
I don't really keep up with them because I've got so much going on at AEW, but I hear he's doing good things. I hear he's, trying to revive the place a little bit and, just kind of make it his own because Vince had it for so long and make it his own. And hopefully they'll do a good job because I know that we are. And if they slack, we're not slacking. So,
yes.
I know he's a New Hampshire guy and he's doing good things. I mean, that's pretty much all I know. I can't elaborate because I'm not in there. If I was in that system, it would be different, but more power to him. Good luck,
And you guys spent so much time on the road together. You were part of D-Generation X, one of the biggest stables of all time, and you were an integral part of that, Billy Gunn. Are there any funny stories between you and Triple H that we may not know about? Any funny things you guys did on the road, pranks, ribs, anything like that maybe you could share? The
funny thing is as good as we were on screen, we all had our thing off screen. So the time we spent off screen or back out of the wrestling business would be working out because we both are, we both enjoy that. We both enjoy working out and doing different things. And, we would, run some different workout ideas by each other every once in a while. But we never really hung out. We all just have our different things.
Sure.
We all just find guys that we usually kind of gel with. We all get up at the same time. We all eat. So it's not because the road is hard enough, mind you. Back then when we were doing it was 300 days out of the year. I mean, we were running.
Yep.
So you always wanted to be around people that kind of had the same schedule as you. So it's a little bit easier on the road because obviously we were all, the road life is what it is. And you try to cope with that as much as you can from being away from home for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was always more with me and him. It was more the working out part.
Interesting.
I wish I had better stories for you.
Well, you guys had some tremendous stories on air. You invaded WCW with a tank. Something I'd ask you about is when you first debuted in mainstream wrestling to people like me in the Northeast. You came in as part of the Smoking Guns. You were a cowboy. Mm-hmm. So was that a character, or is Billy Gunn kind of a real-life cowboy?
No, the funny thing is that was my life. That was when I was a little kid. I high school rodeoed, I junior rodeoed, I went pro, I went to college on a bull riding scholarship. So and luckily that the character-wise was easy for me to play because I was that.
That's awesome.
It was the wrestling part that I had to get down. But yeah, no, Billy Gunn is a real-life, honest-to-goodness cowboy. Well, at heart, that's what he really is.
Well, that segues nicely into this. As I mentioned, you were in DX, D-Generation X, and in DX, it started out you were badass Billy Gunn, and then eventually you took on the name Mr. Ass, and which I just remember my parents' heads snapping around like The Undertaker when they heard Mr. Ass on their television. But my question for you, Billy Gunn, is at the height of wrestling, what was it like traveling through airports and malls with people shouting Mr. Ass at you?
Well, lo and behold, it still holds up to this day because they do it every single day.
Ugh.
Like, they still do it to this day. Other than the scissoring thing, it goes right back to that because everybody always, are you still, I said, I'm still him. I haven't changed. I haven't reincarnated myself. So, yeah, it was a thing that in the Attitude Era, everything sticks. I mean, if it was edgy or catchy, and I guess me mooning everybody didn't help the situation, but
yeah.
But it's it was just a wild time in wrestling because we really could do no wrong, and the only way that came about is one night Road Dogg was mad for some reason. He is never mad, but he said, you will call him Mr. Ass, you will call me Mr. Dog. And then from that moment on, the next week, there was Mr. Ass signs from one end of the building to the other. People just thought it was hilarious. Like, that's how easy it was. Like, I wish I had a more elaborate story for that, but that's how easy it literally was. He said it one time, and from that time to this day right now, I will always be known as that.
I love
and my song wasn't too bad.
No, it was great. I'm an ass man. I got the video game still, and but I just also imagine that must be the easiest pitch to Vince too, right? I mean, with that sense of humor, it's like you're gonna be Mr. Ass from now on.
Exactly.
Just like it fell right into him.
From now on, that's Billy. I really like that. I'm like, okay, Vince, whatever you say, we're good.
I just like that even in such an amazing world like wrestling, it's just workplace nicknames. It's once you grab the wrong lunch out of the fridge, you're a lunch guy. Like it's so funny.
That's it. That's the wrestling business, folks.
you mentioned earlier, and I want to call back to this. One of the cool things is your sons, Colton and Austin, right? They wrestle in AEW. You get to work. You get to wrestle with your sons. What is it like wrestling with and against your sons? It's amazing.
Well, if you ask them when we were together, it was a lot easier on them than being apart, because I had a legit license to beat Colton up without getting in trouble as a parent. So, but no, how, like, really, if you're in this business and you have kids that follow in your footsteps, it's like, does my career get any better than that? I mean, I can retire now, and not that it wasn't full before, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I get to work with them. I have two new amazing kids that I get to work with that are so much fun in the Acclaim.
Yep.
I mean, like I really am on one side blessed, and then on the other side, I'm just having so much fun with them, because being young and being in a thing that's catching on and so over, just to watch their faces when they're out there where the people are so loud is just, and I don't take anything for granted, but I've been there and heard some loud things. Like, I've heard people pop so loud it's bone shaking. But it's fun to experience that with them, and it's fun to just live in that moment, because it just, like, I get to be young again. So.
Though, I mean, that's what I always say. My friends always say, Billy Gunn is still Billy Gunn. How come we all look different? Billy Gunn's still Billy Gunn. It's amazing. You have, like, you and Paul Rudd. I think you guys are aliens or something. But
yeah.
Speaking of,
I think that's what most people think.
Yeah. Speaking of, but people with endless energy, I want to talk for a second about Tony Khan. He's an interesting guy, and people in the sports world, everyone knows Tony Khan. I feel like pretty soon he's going to be very mainstream. Everyone's going to know Tony Khan. Can you tell people a little bit that may not know about Tony? What's Tony Khan like? What's his story? And what's it been like working for him?
It's been amazing. He is so in tune with everybody. I mean, he appreciates everything that everybody does, from driving the trucks there to the people that set up our stage, to the people that work for him. He is a guy with endless energy, and that's really all people need to know. And he's such a fan and such a great person to work for, that there's no, like, with him, there's no stress. It's just, if you have ideas, he's super open to listen to them. He's super in tune to everybody that works for him. He's just an amazing guy, and he's just having fun. He's like, when you see your boss having just as much fun as you are, it brings your work to a different level.
That's such a good point.
It just brings everything out. It brings the good out in everybody, because you go, holy cow, if my boss can be this excited, then I can be this excited. I can go out there and have fun, and he'll, and everybody that comes back from the curtain that works, he thanks them and says you do such a good job. And that's, in this business, you don't really get that as much as we should, but he's amazing.
Well, speaking of people with endless energy, go to the other side of things. Of course, you worked for many years for Vince McMahon, who I think we can all agree is probably the most iconic wrestling promoter of all time.
Yeah.
He would call it sports entertainment, but I digress. What is? There are endless stories. I'll just ask you an easy one. What is your favorite Vince story? Something just between you and Vince that happened. You have a
Probably the day that he hired us.
Okay.
Like I wasn't like we went in we had a tryout. Me and Bart had a tryout. Now, mind you, if you know my backstory, you know that I was never a wrestling person. I didn't grow up watching it. I knew nothing about it. This just absolutely fell into my lap, and thank God the only regret I have is I wish I would have known about this earlier, because I love it so much, and I engulfed my entire life into it, and I've had a 30-something year run with it. So, but when we went from the tryout into Vince's office, he called us in his office. He just went, hey, tell me a little bit about yourselves. We're interested in hiring you. And he was actually in there with J.J. Dillon. That's when J.J. Dillon was his right-hand man about hiring people.
Another very legendary wrestler and promoter, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we're sitting there, and I'm looking at Vince, and he's asking me, and he goes, hey, we'd like to, give you a contract, look it over. Back then they were just simple, like 12 dates, but you really worked 30 or 300.
Yes.
So it was really, like, now that I look back on it, it was actually kind of funny. But Vince looked at it and says, hey, check this contract out, look it over, we'd like to hire you. And I looked at Vince and I said, Vince, I have a regular job. Do I just do this on the weekends? And he looked at me and just laughed, and he goes, no, I think you'll be all right. And lo and behold, I was all right. I mean, it was, not knowing anything about the wrestling business, knowing that this consumes every ounce of your life, and I just said, hey, can I just do this on the weekends? And he laughed so hard. And that's my ultimate Vince story. So
that's great. Now I know this may be tough to discuss because things are still being sorted out, but a story that's made news mainstream as of late is the situation that occurred with AEW's CM Punk. And long story short, it looks like he may be done with AEW. That's the rumor that's out there. I'll just ask you this. What was it like to have this great comeback story in the company 1 minute where everyone was so excited about it, and then before you know it, it has this bizarre ending? Just what's your feeling on that from a coworker standpoint?
So I don't know much about what's going on. I've known Punk because I worked with Punk in, WWE. I had his last match on TV.
Oh, that's there. Right. Yeah.
From me, I don't really. So me personally, I don't really get into what everybody's personal life is and what's going on with the company and that, because it's hard enough just to, kind of manage me and the boys at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's a personal thing. It's the person that, we can all speculate and say what we want to say, but at the end of the day, it's a Punk decision. It's a Punk. He has to live with what happened or whatever. But I don't, it was awesome to have him back because let's face it, he really is a standout person in the wrestling business, and it really helped us at the time. And to see him go the way it happened is what happened. I mean, that was, his decision on dealing with it that way. I don't get too much into it, but hey, there's only one person that's got to live with it, not me. That's
Amen.
Not me.
I'll end on a light note here. So, Billy Gunn, you are a cowboy, and so what are some Gunn family Thanksgiving traditions?
Wow, just trying to get everybody in the same room, I guess it would be one of them. Because we all have our own things that we do, and we normally try to get together as much. I mean, I'm with the boys all the time. It's, my wife trying to get, because, she wants to see them. I want to see them, just trying to do Thanksgiving stuff. And normally the weird thing is the last 2 years during Thanksgiving, I was prepping for shows because I did bodybuilding shows and I couldn't eat anything except rice and fish. So this year I'm going to absolutely make up for the last 2 years, and I'm going to go crazy. I'll probably have to make my own turkey.
Well, yeah, I was going to say fishbone doesn't sound as appealing as wishbone, so I'm glad you get to go for it this year. Before we go, is there anything I forgot to mention that you'd like to mention about AEW coming to town?
Yeah, just, if you've never been to a live show, AEW, and you live in Boston, around the Boston area, come, because this show is really stacked, and it's going to be so much fun. There's so much, like if you just, you go, you have fun, you either people watch and you wrestling watch and you just have fun and don't read too much in it. Just have one night where you just say, hey, I'm going to let my hair down. I'm going to have some fun and just go out. And our show is it.
On June 25th, 2003, I did my first ever stand-up set at an actual comedy club in Harvard Square in Massachusetts. It did not go very well, but luckily the following week I came back and my next guest was the host, and she set me up in a really good way and made me look good. And I probably wouldn't be here right now talking to you if it weren't for her. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Boston comedian Kelly MacFarland. How are you doing, Kelly?
Hi. Good, John. How are you?
It's just so good to talk to you. You were on my two first comedy shows, because I break it down this way. You were there. You were on the first one I ever did, which is erased from my memory with one of those lightning pens from like Men in Black. But then you were the MC for the second one I did, which was the real first one, because I did well, and you were so nice and welcoming, and it's just so nice to talk to you again.
It's so nice to talk to you again. And you know what's so funny is that I feel like we've known each other a very long time, and I haven't seen you in so long.
I know, exactly. Well, how's it feel to be back out? Because not a lot of us didn't see anyone for a couple of years.
I know. It feels great. I feel like now everything is kind of back to normal because it's super busy, which I will never complain about ever again. I promise. Yeah. I'm telling the universe, not you or the listeners. I'll never complain about being too busy because we were no busy. No busy. We were no busy during the pandemic. I did a lot of online stuff during the pandemic. How about you?
I did a couple. So these are Zoom shows, in case people aren't familiar, right? Like basically we would go on Zoom like you're going to a Zoom meeting, but it's a comedy show. And I had mixed. Kelly, how did you feel about the Zoom shows?
Listen, I would 10 times rather be in the room with people because I feel like I'm all about connecting with my stand-up. I like to connect. I look at every show as a moment in time that I'm sharing with these people. The older I've gotten, the more woo-woo I've gotten about performing. I love it so much. So Zoom is not my preferred. However, I actually got good at it, which made me feel even more uncomfortable. Because I kept thinking, how am I connecting with people on Zoom? I could never do it when I had a day job back in the day. But this seemed like it was okay. It pacified me.
Were there any strange moments you had on Zoom shows where like someone forgot to mute their camera or something? And you just, what's the weirdest one?
Every show had a weird moment, right? There was always a moment. Let's see. No particular order. The first one that comes to mind is there was a man on one of the, I call them the cubes, the squares, right? Mm-hmm. I always keep it on galleries for Zoom shows so I can see everyone. And there was a man, he was in his underpants. So there was that. And I was thinking, and it was not flattering. And
okay, yeah,
no judgment and know your limits. And the next one was there was a bird. Someone had a bird, and it was like mimicking the noises I was making.
No,
so I was speaking like a human. And apparently it doesn't translate to bird because this bird was trying to mimic what I was saying with like a Northeast hybrid accent. It was really awful. And the delivery was not my preferred. And
it's telling the joke's wrong. Horrible. You're like, it works for me. The bird's getting it wrong. Yeah.
Yes, this bird had terrible comedic timing. And then the last one was a corporate one, and someone forgot to mute their line, and they were making travel arrangements. And it was so loud that I had to talk about it because I was competing with someone speaking at a regular volume and being like, now, does that room have a desk? And what's the chair like? Is the chair, does it have lumbar support?
Yeah.
Because I had a bike accident I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I hope he doesn't say anything inappropriate.
Yeah, I know. It's like a Jeffrey Toobin incident. It's like that guy that got fired for, Yeah, that's what made me
Oh
too
my
nervous to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to. I've never. My thing, Kelly, is when I go do stand up, I don't want to have to testify afterwards. That's my
Right.
main goal. So,
Right.
But you-
Right. I don't want to make anybody a witness, and I don't want to be a witness.
Yeah,
Those are the key things.
yeah, exactly. You have such an interesting story. You started out in Maine, right? Before you came down to the Boston area.
Yeah, I did. I started in Maine in the late 90s, which now is so weird to say. And there was one comedy club up there, the Comedy Connection in Portland. And
Sure.
then shortly after, I moved to Mass. So I've been in the Boston area since 2002. And yeah, I've stayed here the whole time. Please don't judge me.
No.
I'm feeling compelled to interview you, but I'm sure your listeners know how fantastic you are.
Oh, Kelly. Yes, please interview me. Yeah, be like that parrot that was mimicking you. No.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I'll take it. We'll flip the script. Hi, welcome to The Shark, the morning show with Kelly.
Hey. Hi,
John.
Kelly. Yeah, what's going on?
John, you have such an interesting story.
Oh, yeah?
You did stand-up in Boston and then just really went and took over. So
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And that would be my whole interview.
Yeah. I do have to ask, though, because there are a lot of great comics that come down from Maine, and just how did you get started like up there? Because in Boston, you kind of fall into it. Either you go to a show or there's a club near where you live. At least there was, at one point in time.
Yeah.
How does it happen in Maine where you just say, I'm going to go for it, especially pre-YouTube and all that other stuff? How do you get going and become as successful as you did?
Well, so it's the same story, actually, which is really kind of adorable and funny, I think, because people think Maine, there's not a lot going on up there. I went to college in Portland, Maine, which is a wonderful little city, and there was this one comedy club, and I was done with school, and I started going out to this show on Wednesday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And it was part stand-up, part sketch, and Butch Bradley was there, Al Dalbeni, these comedians that were so funny, and it was every Wednesday. So I started going, and I always loved stand-up. I loved it. I was one of those kids, right? I was listening to stand-up albums that I shouldn't have been when I was very young, and from my parents' den. And so I loved stand-up, and I watched a lot of it on TV, and I just didn't know how you did it. So I was one of those people, I kind of went in and would watch these shows, and I thought, well, I mean, these guys are just doing this.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing it. So there was a contest, and I entered the contest, and I started progressing through. It was week to week, and then I made it to the finals, and I came in second. And
oh, yeah.
Then I just never stopped.
That's so amazing. And also your television appearances. Kelly, you've been on the Today Show, you've been on Comedy Central, Last Comic Standing, The View. Is there anything that jumps out at you as a crazy backstage story on one of those shows? Because I'm seeing a couple here, and I'm like, there's a couple notable names on there.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. So nothing with stand-up, believe it or not, because with stand-up, I think everybody's in the same headspace.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on The View, I was on as a guest, and I was in the bathroom before the show started, before we started filming, and Joy Behar asked me for some toilet paper. So that is one of those things. Yeah, I know, right? Weird.
Joy asked if you could spare a square in the ladies' room.
That is correct, John. That is correct.
Wow.
And I said, no, get out of here.
Yeah, that's how you got to set the mood for the View.
Yeah. That if you want, for the View, maybe, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a battle in there.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm convinced at the View they let a beehive loose right before they start rolling, and they just say everyone's in a good mood, and then they go, "How's everyone doing?" Great. Well, we'll fix that, and then just for the next 59 minutes.
Very Hunger Games.
Yes.
Yeah, very Hunger Games. Why don't we cue the dog? We had a dog.
Yeah, bring in the Rottweilers. Yeah, we got any dinosaurs out there? Yeah. Well, that brings me to the question that I like to ask all fellow comics when they come on Rineman in the morning. And so a video went viral recently, and this has been happening more and more, and I hope it stops. But a comedian was heckled. Someone threw a beer can at her. She chugged the beer. It was awesome. But it's this thing of you shouldn't be throwing things, let alone heckling at stand-up shows. So like we just said, please don't do that. Please let the performers perform. Do you have, though, a heckler story, a favorite heckler story for you, Kelly MacFarland, that you remember?
Yeah, I do actually. So I had one from when I first started that like years ago. I was a baby comic. It wasn't good, just charming. And you know what I'm talking about when you're new and it's like the material's not really there.
You look
and,
funny, you seem funny, the jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're kind of making, you're like doing your thing.
Sure.
And someone threw their prosthetic leg at me. That was always my favorite.
Someone threw their leg at you?
Yes, I was way up in northern Maine, like almost in Canada, and this table of rowdy folks, one of them took his leg off and chucked it at me, and then I kept it on stage with me for the rest of the show. That's always been my favorite story. But a few years ago, I was doing I know you have so many follow-up questions.
Well, I was just going to say, when my dumb joke was going to be when the police asked you about it and said, was the suspect armed? You were like, well, that's not the issue. No, but Kelly,
right.
But Kelly, my thing is they really didn't think it through, basically, where it's just like, I'm going to show her. Hey, Frank, how'd that go? It didn't really.
I mean, I can, now I have your leg.
Yeah,
What's
you have
your move now.
Yeah. What's the other one, though, you were going to talk about?
So the other one was at a corporate Christmas party a couple years ago, and I think anyone who's been to a corporate Christmas party knows this is where people make mistakes. This is where HR dreams.
I think it's a trap.
Right?
I think it's a trap. It's the end of the fiscal. It's getting the end of the fiscal year, and they're like, "What can we do here to kind of cut back? Let's have a Christmas party. Serve lots of alcohol." So what happens?
Right.
You go
Someone
to this.
Will make a mistake.
Exactly.
So I played this Christmas party, and there was a woman who had a lot to say, and it was fine. It was all harmless. And then at one point, she was hanging off of her partner, and I just acknowledged it, and she came bombing towards me and got to me. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to end, because you're trying to keep it light, right? You want the audience to know you're still in control.
Yeah.
She was very tall. I'm only 4'11". She was much taller than me.
Ugh.
And I thought, well, this is going to end. I don't know how it's going to end. I mean, I want to say one of two ways, but I guess it could really do anything. She really was coming to hug me, but because she was so much taller than me, I was in a headlock. She had me in a headlock and had my mic. She took my mic.
Oh, no.
And that's the biggest fear, I think, for a comic. Like, as long as they don't get your mic, your microphone, you're okay. But she had my mic and me in a headlock. And no one was helping me. No one was rescuing me.
How'd you get out of it? What'd you do?
So, I bit her. No, I did not bite her. That would have been weird. No, she finally loosened her grip enough that I kind of squirmed out.
Oh my gosh.
And then I just looked in her eyes and I said, please give me back my microphone. In the most human, sweetest, lowest voice I could muster. I said, please just give me back my microphone. And she kind of looked down at me like, oh, poor little elf. And she gave it back. And then I took control. So it was kind of like...
You attacked her with that guy's leg. You still had it.
Yeah. Yes, I have the leg. I've never let it go. There's a GoFundMe out there. I contribute what you can. It's a weird thing because now anytime I see anyone, and I think you're right, when we see all these videos now, that video of her getting that beer chucked at her is banana pants. Yeah. She handles herself so well. Now anytime I see anyone coming towards the stage, I always am like, oh my gosh, is this it?
I know.
Is this it? So please be kind to your friendly comedians. We're all just...
And I hope you had a good time listening to the Rineman in the Morning podcast. My thank you to Kelly MacFarland, and my thanks, of course, to Billy Gunn. And Billy, if you need some help preparing that turkey, make sure you check out the episode with Nicole Johnson from the Butterball Turkey line. Till next time.